Vicky, Southworth.
So where should I sit? Thank you very much for letting me speak. Sorry, am I supposed to start yet? First, could I just add on to the previous presentation, which was so fantastic to see? And I'm actually a disappointed parent who got in touch with Enviro Schools to see if my school could join in. We're at Sumner School, and this, the programme is not expanding. We couldn't, I was keen to try and get our teachers involved and, to push this, and there was no capacity at all, and that's really disappointing because kids are so important to the future. They are the ones that bring this stuff home.
I won't take this off your 5 minutes, but what school was that?
That was Sumner School.
Right.
So
okay.
Sumner School's not part of this programme, and until there is additional funding, as I understand it, there is no opportunity to get involved in this. What's a fantastic scheme, and it's really set up for teachers to make things easy.
Yeah.
Teachers struggle. We've started a school garden at Sumner School, but the teachers really struggle to find the extra time to get these things going, and that's why these external organisations that can provide that additional support and already have curriculum activities that they can incorporate is just totally necessary to make it. So you've got to make it simple for teachers because they've got so much on their plates already.
Well, I came across it when I was a Member of Parliament at South New Brighton, and it was awesome. The whole school was really focused on the environment, and I presume still is today. So yeah, really hear you. Thank you.
Well, I think this leads on to my topic. I'll just introduce myself. So I'm giving my opinion, that's all. I don't represent anybody other than me. But I would add, I'm a student at the Waterways Centre for Freshwater Management, and I'm a community member of the Canterbury Water Regional Committee. I'm also a mum, which means I think I do have a real view for the future for my children, and I'm a recently approved New Zealand citizen. So I have a vested interest in this country long term, I hope. And I've got 3 topics I want to cover. It's wastewater, stormwater via the proposed water partnership, and then cycleways. So firstly, wastewater. I'm not an expert in this area at all. It's just simply, I guess, an appeal to decency. It feels to me like we had a focus on water quality through the elections, and I suppose the focus predominantly was on rural water, but there's a lot of issues around urban water quality. And it just seems to me we're in a first world country. It's completely normal to expect to pay for proper management of our human waste and industrial effluent, which is also a component of wastewater. And to see the council not proposing to put enough funding just to maintain the infrastructure at the standard at which it, if I've understood it right, at the standard at which it is currently, and to accept that we could reduce our standards on this just seems a bit of a surprise to me. So then moving on to the water partnership. So I'm interested in how we can get everyone engaged and involved in reducing contaminants and pollution. There's a lot we can do as individuals, but I don't think everyone's aware of that. And if we all do our bit, we can actually reduce our rates. So I think there's actually a cost saving to be had through engaging and informing citizens. So I'm particularly highlighting here that there are already community groups that can support a programme to share knowledge with citizens. As I understand, the Water Partnership is looking at getting $1 million for the next 20 years to really bring those groups together to maximise the effect for a reasonable cost. And in reducing end-of-pipe solutions, that's a reduced cost. Bells Creek filter system, as I understand it, cost around $1.5 million, and it's a further $600,000 per year to maintain that, unless the contaminants coming through the catchment reduce, at which point presumably that would reduce. In terms of knowledge, the 10% who responded to the council's waterway survey, 40% or thereabouts didn't know what happened to stormwater. They don't understand the link between what goes down the grate that comes out directly into the waterways in many cases. And so it seems to me there's a lot of opportunity there to improve knowledge and to encourage people to have a more water-sensitive behaviour. So this is just a table up on the screen showing the contribution of different contaminants and the different surfaces within a city. And from this you can see that car parks and roofs do contribute significant amounts of contaminant, looking at some of the key ones in Christchurch, which are suspended sediments, copper and zinc. And so behaviour change in terms of thinking about your roofing materials, thinking about businesses and their interests in environmental footprints these days. There is scope for businesses, for individuals to make changes to their practice, paint your roof, change your copper brake pad, or your copper brake pads, and put on your copper free. And these are all things that just need to be, you just have to keep pushing that message. You can't do it piecemeal, I don't think. There needs to be a really defined long-term plan to getting behaviour change. Behaviour change doesn't happen overnight. It's a long, long, slow process. And just for interest, actually, I put the car park from Auckland, that's Placemakers Car Park in Auckland, has rain gardens and it has permeable paving in the back end. So that's making a difference not just to pollutants, but also to the overall runoff on that site. This is a really interesting project to look at from Seattle. They have a goal of reducing their runoff by 700 million gallons, and they are working very much at the community scale and provide an excellent website to help people. There's other things in there, like some rebates and incentives, but a lot of support to help people make action on the ground. And you can see on that how many projects have already been undertaken working towards their project goal, which is aiming for 2025 to have a change. That's worth exploring, and I think this is the sort of thing that the City Council could do with a long-term funding in this area. And then cycleways. I just wanted to flag firstly, it bugs me when I see people talk about cyclists, and I am a cyclist, but I also drive, and I walk, and I bus. And so for me, it's really important to have a safe option when you cycle. I believe I cycle because I started cycling as a kid. I was in a small town, luckily. The traffic was reasonable and I could cycle without too much anxiety, or my parents having too much anxiety. I was one of 4, so it gave my parents some additional freedom, the fact that we could all cycle and walk ourselves places. And 30 years on, thereabouts, 3 out of 4 of us still regularly use our bike for recreation and also for transport. And I think that is about having had that habit built up over time. In Christchurch at the moment, I think I could safely take my children from the city centre out towards the island using the new cycle routes that are off the road or separated from the road, but bring them in from Sumner and get so far, but then you're onto Ferry Road, and that's a very frightening prospect, even as an adult cyclist who's also a driver, which I think gives me a heightened awareness of the risks. I could not take my children on there for a long time. So really it's just saying, please continue with the cycleways. They're a really fundamental and important part of our transport network. So I then tried to think about what's motivating me to sit here and talk about these different themes. And to me, there is a unifying theme, and it's about the future, and it's about looking at what do we want to see and how do we get there. And for me, the connection, well, when you think about the city and how it's densifying, we know the population is likely to grow. Certainly there's a planning policy to densify. We either have a choice. It's either to become an increasingly congested city with degraded waterways, or a city with beautiful, ecologically healthy waterways and an ease of transport, be that public transport, be that cycleways, be that walking, and driving when you need to. And there are people for whom that's really important, and I get that. But really just look around the world, look at the cities that you like and what you think looks good, and think about where you want Christchurch to be in 20, 30, 50 years' time, and let's start making those moves. It's really important. You can't make that overnight. It takes time. Thank you.
Look, thank you very much. That's a very powerful submission. So thank you for putting the time and effort into both writing it and presenting it. So
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I invite